Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. I'm Julie Gunlock, the director of the Independent Women's Network, and I'm joined by Independent Women's Network Denver chapter leader Megan Burke. She is a two-time NCAA champion in track and cross country. Hey Megan.
Hi.
You there? How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing great. It's good to see you. We are going to talk about a lot of stuff today, but I think it's worth noting that we are experiencing an amazing moment in history because today, for the first time, we might have a female presidential candidate who doesn't know what a woman is. So I think we need to mark this moment as quite unique in American history and world history. And hopefully we can clear that up for her today. We'll get to all of that a bit later. But before we get started with our guest of honor tonight, Riley Gaines, I want to go over a few housekeeping matters. If you're new to this platform, I want to point out a few features. First, we have a chat room on the right-hand side of your screen where you can join the discussion with other attendees, speakers, and our staff is here too. If you don't see the chat room, click on chat on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. The chat room is open during the entire event. There, you should feel free to comment on what's being discussed or criticize what's being discussed. You can share your location with others and chat with other attendees. Next to the chat room tab, there's a questions tab. You can post your questions there and I will read them off, or you can actually join us on stage, and we really hope you will join us because this is meant to be an interactive conversation with Riley. So you can come up on camera and ask the question directly to her live. Of course, I know some of you don't want to be on camera. So if you do want to ask Riley a question live on camera, put on camera in your question and we'll know to put you in the queue. One other thing, we love to see your reactions, so feel free to use any of the emojis in the reactions tab. I see some of you have already started. There they are. And one last thing, we have 2 signed copies of Riley's new book, Swimming Against the Current, to give away to one of the attendees today. But here's the catch. You have to stay the entire time. So don't switch over to Daily Mail or some other site. You got to stay put, because at the end, if you're still here, your name might be drawn. So with the technical stuff out of the way, we are thrilled to hear from Riley Gaines, the author of the new best-selling book, Swimming Against the Current, Fighting for Common Sense in a World That's Lost Its Mind. What a great title. In addition to being a best-selling author, she is also an Independent Women Ambassador, and she's host of Outkick's Gains for Girls podcast. If your daughters are not listening to that, they should be. Riley is a model of what courage, bravery, and grit looks like in speaking out against these powerful institutions and activists. Riley is standing up to anti-women, anti-reality actors, and fighting for women's rights and common sense. Riley, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello. It is so good to be on with you guys. IW always does the best job. They always have the best hosts. And so Megan and Julie, I could not be more excited. So thank you guys.
Megan, are you still there?
I am here. I am
okay.
Here.
Do you see Riley?
I see Riley. Hi, Ry.
Oh.
Hi.
Okay, guys, I think at least you can hear me, but I think my computer is I'm having a little bit of trouble connecting with Riley. Riley, can you hear me?
I hear you and I see you. I hear you and I see you. Wow. Megan, I saw you put up a video.
Okay, so you can hear me and you can see me. I cannot hear Riley.
She lost her net connection. Anyways, I was just going to say very briefly, Megan posted on her Instagram today, which if you don't follow her, you absolutely should. But she posted a video and you can see her adorable little daughters in the back making funny faces.
I know.
But it was so sweet because it just reminds me what we're fighting for. So exactly. I love to see that.
Yes, mom of 2 girls. And I actually asked my 7-year-old, they call you Rai. They're like, oh, Rai is going to be on the podcast. And they were looking at the book. And my 7-year-old said, well, can you ask her how you get better at swimming? And so I do right off the bat, just want to say that Riley was a 12-time All-American and a 5-time SEC champion. And then one thing I didn't know is a 2-time Olympic trials qualifier, which is a huge, huge deal. And so obviously your book, you talk about, you know, some of your swimming and the background and everything that happened. But I kind of want to start from the beginning because sports are so important to girls, and kind of talk about your beginning of swimming, your youth swimming, how you got into it, what made you so competitive with it, what made you better. And then if potentially you were forced to swim with a young boy at a young age, if that would have deterred you from the sport altogether, because unfortunately, I think that is happening.
No doubt. Yeah. I love this. I love addressing really how I got into playing sports, because like you said, playing sports, I mean, it shaped me. It shaped me far beyond even just my athletic career, but even now, the values and the skill sets that you learn and develop from playing sports, they transcend beyond athletics. And so I started, first of all, I come from a family of athletes. So my dad, he was a SEC football player. He is an SEC Hall of Famer. He went on to play professional football. So he played with the Philadelphia Eagles for a brief stint. My mom, she was a Division I softball player, all conference, a very accomplished softball player. My oldest sister, she played softball. She went to Ole Miss. My brother, he is in college. He plays football now. My youngest sister, she is 15. She's going into her sophomore year of high school. She's probably the best athlete out of all of us, which it pains me to say that. I never actually tell her that, but she's pretty remarkable. All my uncles, I mean, won Super Bowls. All that to say, I come from a very accomplished athletic family. So it was never an option if we were playing sports, it's which sports we were playing. That was kind of a non-negotiable in my family, which now is probably considered some form of child abuse. But we were forced to play sports, if I'm going to be totally honest with you, which God bless my parents for forcing that upon us. And I did the thing a lot of kids do, right? Like I played soccer, I did softball, I did volley. I mean, I did all the sports until you kind of hone in on the one that feels right, that you know you can excel in, that you know you can achieve and succeed in. And so for me, I started swimming when I was 4 years old. That was kind of it. Once I got to high school, I was playing both softball and swimming. And I realized once I started to get recruited for college, I was being recruited for both sports. I realized I had to pick one finally, which approached my parents. I told them, hey, you know, I think I want to put more time and more energy into swimming. And my dad said, no, Riley, I said, you have to play a sport. He was convinced that swimming was a hobby. He didn't really think it was a sport. He thought it was, and to be honest, which this probably tells a lot about my family, his justification was any sport, any hobby where a man is wearing panties is not a sport. Which, if you've seen swimming, you know, men wear those little Speedos. And to my football playing dad, that was not satisfactory.
If your dad only knew what was going to happen at the NCAA championships.
Oh, exactly.
Oh, totally.
In the women's suit.
No, totally. And so that was kind of like my childhood. Once I honed in on swimming, I loved it. Of course, it's a love-hate to a degree. It's hard. Go ahead.
You had the funniest line. I found this totally relatable. You said, make no mistake, I've always had a love-hate relationship with swimming. Most swimmers do. Heck, most collegiate athletes of all sports do. From the start until I finished my career at the University of Kentucky, I loved being on a team, setting and meeting goals, and being pushed and challenged to keep improving. This is the funniest line, Riley. You said, weirdly enough, one of my least favorite aspects of swimming was feeling like I was always wet, especially my hair. I found that so hilarious. But, you know, I think young people would be encouraged by that because it's not all pleasant. It's not all wins. It's a lot of hard work. It leads me into this other question, this sort of training that you and persistence that you have to become an elite athlete, no doubt prepared you for your advocacy work. I Another thing that you say in your book, you say there was one thing I hated the most about competing, and that was losing. I hated losing even more than I loved winning. I'd always been like that. I am still like that. And then you wrote another hilarious line. You said, my husband won't even play Uno with me. Do you think that is part of what drives you today, not wanting to lose this battle? Probably the most important battle in America today.
110%. That's what drives me. I think a lot of athletes can probably resonate with that. Like, there is nothing worse than losing. I remember at my sophomore year SEC championships, which this was in February of 2020. So a month later, COVID hit, took the world by storm. But it was our sophomore year. We were finishing up. It's like a week-long meet. It's draining. It's pretty miserable, but it's the meet you work really all year for. And so we're sitting there watching, and Kentucky placed second in the SEC behind Tennessee, which my dad played for Vanderbilt. And so we never sang the song Rocky Top. We did not like the color orange. And I remember sitting there at that SEC championships watching as Tennessee got to stand atop the podium. All these girls, they're holding the trophy. Rocky Top is blaring. And I had vowed myself right then and there, we are winning next year. I don't care what it takes. I will hold every single person accountable. I was the team captain. I would do whatever it took to ensure that we beat Tennessee, really everyone, the next year. And that's exactly what I did. Every day in practice after we returned back, we had a couple months off because of COVID. I reminded everyone of that visual every single day. I told them, hey, remember how terrible it felt watching Tennessee stand up top? We had to hear Rocky Top. Remember how terrible that was? So that was kind of my motivating factor, and I used it to drive everyone else towards success. So I think it resonates with a lot of athletes. And again, it's far more applicable. It's far more applicable in my life now than it even was when I was swimming. And so we have certainly seen over these past 2 years or so, we have seen losses. There's no doubt. We've seen girls continue to lose out on opportunities. We've seen girls continue to be exploited in locker rooms. We have seen girls like Peyton McNabb, another IWF ambassador, who have been injured in their sports. Those are losses. But it pales in comparison to the wins that we have and the wins that we're working towards. So.
Megan?
Yeah, I was just coming from an athlete as well. When I first heard your story, obviously my first reaction as such a competitor was like, this is so unfair. I cannot imagine. I mean, we used to get taken off the track to get drug tested for testosterone, and they would watch you go to the bathroom. Do you know what I mean? To keep it fair. And now we have a male competing. But I was hoping, Riley, you could kind of give a peek into the locker room thing, because that shocked me to my core. And I think people really need to understand what was happening in the locker room, because as a parent, I feel like that almost like bothers me more. I mean, the competition, yes, as a competitor, but the locker room is just a whole nother level. So I know you go into that in the book. Can you kind of talk about that?
Of course. I think when looking at the unfair competition side of things, it's hard not to look at it and like laugh, honestly, because it's like an SNL skit, or it's like a Babylon Bee headline, or like a South Park episode, which is objectively meant to be funny. So I think we almost have, of course it's tragic. I'm not downplaying the unfair competition side by any means, but most people can very obviously point out the absurdity of it. But what people can't understand, what they could never possibly understand unless you've been subjected to it, is the violation of changing non-consensually in front of a man who is also simultaneously fully undressed. I didn't have to experience this until that NCAA's. People like Paula, again, another IWF ambassador, she dealt with this for years. She even testified before Congress and said, look, she had to undress in front of him 18 times per week, every single week. And then was told that they were the problem if they weren't okay seeing male genitalia. I can't even imagine that. I got a snippet snippet, a week-long meet, being multiple days, multiple times undressing in each and every day. But in that week, the feelings of, it's awkward, it's embarrassing, it's uncomfortable. It felt like betrayal, and it was traumatizing because, not even traumatizing because of what we were forced to see or how we were forcibly exploited. But it was traumatizing for me to know just how easy it was for those people who created these policies to totally dismiss our rights to privacy without even a second thought, without even bare minimum forewarning us. And so to kind of briefly set the scene, if you have a daughter that has swam, or if you yourself was a swimmer at any point, the suits that you put on, they're skin tight, they're paper thin. It takes about 20 minutes at least to really poke and prod yourself into these suits. Very intimate space. You have friends oftentimes like helping you get your skin rolls into your suit. And I think we can all acknowledge like a locker room is not a place of comfort in general, but growing up a swimmer, you almost become comfortable being vulnerable in that environment. But that vulnerability is stripped when you're in the locker room, again, putting your suit on, you have your back turned, and all of a sudden you hear a man's voice in the locker room. Yeah. And so you're alarmed, you're startled, and you turn around and you look up. You quite literally have to look up because he's towering over everyone else. And you see a man flicking off his women's swimsuit, fully naked, fully exposing himself, fully intact, with no shame whatsoever, no regard. No concern as to how we felt, we as women, as female athletes felt in that moment. It was innate for everyone in the locker room to cover themselves, regardless of how they felt about Thomas competing at the meet with us. Every single girl covered with their hands or with their towel or with their clothes, and they got out of the locker room as quickly as they could. He kind of just stood there. Go ahead.
No, Riley, I gotta just interject here because, it's so funny. I've watched you for so long, and I've been on the bus tour, and I've seen you speak, and you're so eloquent and put together and all this that I sometimes forget that you were in college when all of this happens. I sometimes forget how young you are, honestly. Mm-hmm. And you're on college campus and this is happening, and this man is changing. This fully intact man is changing in front of you, but you're on a college campus. And look, I don't know if your university was super woke, but we certainly know higher education in this country is completely insanely woke. And these are places where, they set up safe spaces if Ben Shapiro comes to speak, or for goodness sake, if you come to speak now, right? And there are trigger words, and there are, you have to be super hypersensitive about this, that, and the other, right? And you must have in that moment been going, this man, they don't care about women's feelings when this man is exposing himself in front of us on a college campus, again, where, you can offend someone very easily, or, you have to use certain pronouns, whatever. The point is that it really was a one-way street. Were you kind of dealing with that? Because again, you're in college, you're dealing with these sort of woke professors and woke policies, probably to some degree. And then nobody has a problem with you being put through this as a woman.
That's an entirely correct analysis. Speaking to kind of this topic as it pertained to like academia, right? In our classes, I had to take the mandatory DEI, mandatory DEI course. I had to take a gender woman studies course. If we even attempted to write in a dissenting viewpoint, we received bad grades. It affected our grades. So it encouraged people like myself, I'm ashamed, but to pander a little bit. I never necessarily wholeheartly would write in my papers, I agree with this stuff, but I would tone it down severely because I knew my grade would be impacted if I didn't. Now on the athletic side at that national championships, this was in 2022. Title IX was enacted in 1972. So this was the 50th anniversary of Title IX. So it was a historic meet. They were passing out shirts that said, Title IX, 50 years of creating opportunities for women and equality and all these different virtue signaling things. And so in the moment, I just felt perplexed. It was like, I felt like I was missing something. Like I felt like it was me who wasn't grasping something. They say they stand for equal opportunity and for women. Surely they see the harm. They see the severity of the policies that they've implemented and enforced. Surely they do. This will be a one-off. They'll fix it pretty immediately and we'll move on. It will be a thing of the past. But no, the NCAA at every corner, at every opportunity they could, they doubled down on their stance, which was really, like, it was hard for me to kind of grapple with that because this was an organization that I trusted, that I loved, that I dedicated myself to. I gave so much of me to the NCAA. I mean, my whole life and working to get there, of course, in those collegiate years. And they had no problem just basically looking at me, looking at my teammates, looking at my competitors in the face and saying that we didn't matter. We existed to them to validate the feelings and the identity of a man at the expense of our own.
Yeah, right. At that meet, when they decided, I don't know if you want to go through the fact that you and Leah Thomas tied, which is so insane. If you know swimming and you know sports, the odds of them tying is like 0.0001. And then the whole giving the trophy, and then your immediate emotions, like as an athlete, as a female, just kind of those like internal emotions that you had. Maybe you could walk us through those emotions and what brought you to like the fight.
Yeah. So we found out who Leah Thomas was, who Will Thomas was, in November of 2021. This is when we found out that he was, in fact, a man leading the nation by body lengths in multiple events, dominating every girl in the country. We found out he was a man in November of 2021, but the national championships wasn't until March of 2022. So a couple months we had to kind of like fester with this information. Again, still unsure how the NCAA would handle this, but it wasn't until about 3 weeks before that national championships when they announced that his participation would be, I mean, it was a non-negotiable. And so in that time leading up from November to March, like I said, I'm ashamed for saying it, but we felt almost intrigued by this. We had so many questions. And it didn't seem real yet. We hadn't been faced with it. So we almost, again, laughed at it. We thought, is he really as tall as his Instagram makes him look? Will he be in the locker room with us? Will he win a national title? Will he kind of slack off on some events to make it seem as if he's being competitive?
Because you are how old at this stage? How old exactly are you?
I was 21.
Yeah. So 21-year-olds competing together and this is going on.
Yeah. And so we felt curious. We knew it was wrong. Of course we did, but almost intrigued by it. And you asked when my feelings kind of shifted, because I will never, ever, ever forget that first day of competition, watching the 500 freestyle and prelims. So of course there's prelims. You have to earn top 16 to come back for finals. That's where you will achieve your overall national ranking. And so we're watching prelims in the morning. And I'm sat on the side of the pool watching the final heat, which is where Thomas is swimming, indicating that he was the top seed, the favorite in the event. And at my team, University of Kentucky, was sat next to Virginia Tech. Our teams were sat next to each other. And so watching this, there's a girl by the name of Reka who had just finished in one of the prior heats. And so she's watching. She knows she's going to be right on the cusp of making top 16. That final heat concludes. Thomas, of course, blows everyone out of the water. Reka looks up at the scoreboard where the rankings are posted, and she saw she got 17th. And I will never forget, she grabbed my hand. I didn't even know her. I knew who she was, but I didn't really know her. And she said, with tears coming down her face, she said, I just got beat by someone who didn't even have to try. And that was it. That's when those feelings of intriguement shifted to, I mean, I felt like I'd been punched in the gut.
Yeah.
It was utter heartbreak in that moment. And those feelings, of course, only intensified as the meet went on, as time has gone on. You indicated Thomas and I We raced, we tied, which, we're racing for 1 minute and 40 seconds, and not even 1/100th separated us, which is, looking back, I mean, that's to me certainly divine intervention. That is God having his hand on it, allowing his will to be done, even in the most unfortunate of circumstances. But anyways, yeah, after tying, we go back there. The NCAA official looks at both of us and says, great job, but you tied and we only have one trophy. So we're going to give the trophy to Leah. Sorry, Riley. And when I asked the dreaded question of why, right, why are you giving the trophy to the man and the women's 200 free? The official, and he said this with a sad face, like I could tell he didn't even believe what he was about to say, but he said, Riley, I'm so sorry. But we have been advised as an organization that when photos are being taken, it's crucial that the trophy's in Leah's hands. You don't get one. And that was it. That was the pivotal moment for me.
So this is going to keep happening. Let's talk about title. This is a great segue into Title IX. I have all boys, very sporty boys, but I have all boys. And I feel like, a lot of women don't really understand what's happening. And even moms of little girls with, daughters, they're not fully aware of what's going on. Can you talk to the audience? Maybe I think IWN, IW, people that are involved in IW are very well informed. So I'm not talking about the women on this call, but why is it so important? And why was Title IX important to you as a young female athlete?
Well, yeah. Well, if you think of Title IX and its origin, right? I mean, it was created on the explicit and utter grounds of being exclusive. That's what Title IX allowed for, is exclusivity, which is a good thing. People hear this word exclusive and they immediately think of segregation or bad or unnecessary. But in areas of where privacy matters, where safety matters, where opportunities are being threatened, exclusivity is a fantastic thing. And that's what Title IX allowed for. And speaking, I guess, very briefly in the kind of the legal mumbo jumbo sense, it prevented sex-based discrimination on any educational program that received federal funding. It was a very short, brief paragraph, 37 words, one word being activity, which allowed Title IX to be what it's most notable for, which is creating equal opportunity in sports. Of course, it's much broader than that. Has lots of implications, but allowed it to be what it's most notable for. And so to me, what this meant, I wouldn't have been able to go to the University of Kentucky had it not been for a full ride scholarship. And that's not just me. There are many girls, many women who play sports who this is their lifeline. This is how they will receive their education. This is how they will continue on to do great things post athletic collegiate career. So again, even taking away how we're being threatened with our athletic achievements, this is threatening the rest of our livelihoods when we allow men to take women's scholarships. Again, it taught me how to being able to play sports at the collegiate level, being a team captain of my team of 40 girls, which was never an easy thing, right? I kind of joke that I was never a part of a sorority, but we called ourselves the Kappa Kappa Goggles, and it certainly felt like a sorority. So it's never an easy thing trying to balance all of the different personalities and cliques, right, which are inevitable when you have a group of girls together. But it taught me how to work through that. It taught me communication skills. It taught me how to be a leader. It taught me how to effectively set goals and work to achieve those goals. Time management. I mean, there are so many skill sets that I again use in my life now that I wouldn't have developed if it weren't for playing sports. And I think it's important to realize that it wasn't that long ago that women were historically oppressed, right? That we will use the buzzwords that they do. They say women, or they'll say that transgender individuals are marginalized or oppressed. it was only half a century ago that women were. And my grandma's
well,
same.
and they continue to say they are. I mean, you go, you go to
Exactly.
any of the, sort of mainstream women's organizations, they say, from the wage gap to everything else, we're still victims of the patriarchy. They haven't changed their messaging, but now they are saying that anyone could be a woman and can take women. So it makes no sense.
No, and it hasn't, and it probably won't.
Back on the Title IX stuff, Riley, people were asking today your opinion on if this changes anything now that Biden has stepped down via X. Where's Biden?
Yeah, no kidding.
But can you kind of explain that or your thoughts on that? Like, will this change anything? What is your opinion on the whole Title IX and Biden and now that he's missing?
Yeah. So brief background, what Joe Biden has done illegally and administratively, he didn't go through Congress. No, he did this with the stroke of a pen. I mentioned those 37 words. Yeah, he created a new proposal for Title IX. That is almost 500,000 words. It is 1,577 pages long from this very brief paragraph, ultimately abolishing Title IX and its original intent, and equating sex with gender identity, meaning it's no longer preventing discrimination on the basis of sex. It's preventing discrimination on the basis of gender identity. In a nutshell, academic and athletic scholarships will be taken from women and awarded to men. Dorm rooms are no longer single sex. Female can be housed with a male and vice versa. Your speech would be compelled. So now you would be forced to use biologically incorrect but preferred pronouns. And if you don't, you would be guilty and charged with sexual harassment. No, not the man parading around your locker room. No, to President Biden, that's considered brave. He has said it many times. He says, these are the most brave and inspiring people I've ever met. But you calling a spade is grounds for sexual harassment. But now what we have seen is Joe Biden fall off the face of the earth. Apparently he called into a call today, but for over 24 hours now, probably close to 30 hours now, there's been no sign of life from Joe Biden. Par that tweet he put out announcing that he would be discontinuing his presidential candidacy and then going on to endorse Kamala Harris. But to my understanding, this doesn't change what will go into effect next week. His rules will go into effect on August 1st. But I will say I feel very hopeful because a couple reasons. One, this is being fought in courts. The Independent Women's Forum has signed on to an incredibly strong lawsuit with the state of South Carolina, the state of Georgia, the state of Florida, and I believe one other group, which is fantastic. So that's great. We've seen 26 states who have sued the Department of Education, again, for what the Biden administration has done, again, illegally. 14 of these states, we have seen a preliminary injunction issued, meaning come August 1st, these states, including my home state of Tennessee, does not have to comply to the new Title IX rules and the effects that they will have, which again
Tennessee was like, we've got Riley. We don't have to.
They're like, no. And in Kentucky, which is great. So 14 states, again, phenomenal. I don't think we would have seen that 2 years ago, which shows you how the tide is turning. It's shifting. And another reason I feel hopeful pertaining to Title IX is we just saw Representative Mary Miller, who has been a dear friend to IW. She has been a fierce fighter for women. She has been really at the forefront of these issues. She's got 5 daughters herself. She's beautiful, and I think she's 65. Look up a picture of Mary Miller. I want to look like that when I'm 65. She's literally gorgeous. But anyways, she just introduced a Title IX Congressional Review Act, which is how Congress can combat this, which passed in the House, not because of any Democrat. Every single Democrat, actually, all 205 that voted in opposition of the CRA, meaning all 210 Republicans who voted in favor of protecting women and girls in sports. Not to poop on the party. It'll probably die in the Senate, but hopefully we have new leadership in the White House in November who has decisively said that they will reverse course from what the Biden administration has done.
Riley, this is a good time to talk about, I know you've done so much work with the Independent Women's Voice, Women's Bill of Rights. Mm-hmm. Much of this can be avoided. What we're seeing, this supposed inability to define a woman, but the truth is it's not codified in law because no one thought it had to be, right? Because we hadn't lost our minds a decade ago, okay? But now since everyone's, well, not everyone, but since the left is crazy now, and we literally have a VP candidate and a Supreme Court justice who don't know what a woman is, who are women, that necessitates this kind of stuff, like the Women's Bill of Rights. Tell us about how hard you've worked, because I know you have done so much work on this, and why you think it's necessary.
Yes, this is probably one of my favorite achievements, really, and I'll call it that because we have achieved a lot. The Independent Women's Voice has been monumental in this feat, in this legislation. As you said, it merely codifies sex-based terms we've never struggled to understand in the nearly 250 years we've been established as a country, and certainly much longer than that. Since God put Adam and Eve on this planet, we've never struggled to understand these words. But now, yeah, it's unfortunate. And I would argue that it's urgent we define these words. Words like mother, words like father, words like female, male, girl, boy, man, woman. We've seen in states like California or like Michigan or a lot of these left-leaning states where they've introduced legislation that changes these words in law. So it's no longer mother or female. No, it's like cervix haver or uterus owner or menstruator or birthing person, egg producer, whatever other derogatory way they can think of that reduces women down to their biological functions and capacities. They're doing just that. So it's been huge. It's been passed in 8 states thus far. A couple states by executive order, meaning the governor, I know Governor Pillen, I know Governor Stitt in Oklahoma, they found it so crucial and so urgent that they weren't willing to even wait for their legislative body. They said, we need to get this done now, which has been great. There's been lots of movement in states that haven't yet passed it, but hopefully will next legislative cycle. So really wonderful things. And we've had wins in states where we didn't think we would, like Kansas, where they have a Democrat governor, Governor Kelly, who ultimately vetoed this piece of legislation. But their legislative body overrode this veto, which was huge. I think the 3 governors who have vetoed this bill thus far, Arizona, New Mexico, and Kansas, have all been women. It is female governors who have become, I think in the best way to put it, is traitors to their own sex.
Yep. Yeah. Unbelievable. I have on my little cheat sheet here, I have in very, very large, bright red letters to continue to remind people to tease them about the book giveaway. And I've forgotten so far. So
I'm about to pull it up and be like, 2 words.
So we're giving away two Riley books. So stay put.
2 signed.
Yes. And at signed. That's right. So don't go away. Stay put. We're going to announce those at the end of the event. And now we are going to take some questions from you. And this is so exciting. I have someone who is going to come up on camera. We have, let's see. We have Jennifer is going to come up on camera and ask you a question, Riley. I think we have her in the queue. Just give it a few minutes. Maybe not. Okay, let me go to the questions tab here. All right. Well, Jennifer Churchfield, I think let me go ahead with this one. Bridget asks, where does Riley stand on girls playing? Oh, do we have her? Oh, there we go. Hi, Jennifer. How are you?
Continue with Bridget, and you can come back to me.
I'm sorry. I'm always like, should I keep waiting? I don't know.
No, it's a delayed tech thing. Sorry.
Great hat, by the way.
Thank you.
I love that.
Yeah.
A lot of summer purchases this year.
Go ahead.
Well, Riley, thank you so much for attending. I just want to say, as a fellow D1 swimmer, but back in 1981, 83, I really appreciate the incredible passion that you've showed, obviously, in the pool and your commitment out of the pool. As you've said, both accomplishments are amazing, and I thank you. Is there a way, when I read your book, I really loved the phrase that you said, that saying protecting women doesn't make you anti-trans. And, I'm really trying. I live here in Denver, Colorado. I'm with Megan, so I know Megan quite well. I'm just working on language to help a lot of our unaffiliated women who struggle a little bit with the compassionate side of themselves, but also how do we help them have a conversation and use language similar to what you stated that can really help us push this issue? Because you do find women who have daughters who do compete that don't at all feel informed or educated about this. And I'm just really working hard on trying to help with language here in Denver.
No, I think that is amazing.
Yeah.
No, this is great. And I think it's a really, really important point, an important piece of this movement as a whole, because our language has been, hijacked. It's been totally co-opted. Like you said, we hear of words like compassion and inclusion and empathy, which are all fantastic things. Those are great things. Who doesn't want to be compassionate? I know I certainly want to be compassionate, but it's just reminding people that it's not compassionate to ask young girls to undress in front of men. That's not what compassion is. And it's not inclusion to ask us as women to smile and step aside and allow these men onto our podiums. No, that's exclusion. And it's exclusive to the very female athletes who Title IX or the women's sporting category was passed to protect and to celebrate and to honor. The language piece, though, like I said, this has been I've had to learn so much. It was hard at first. I didn't know what resources exist. I didn't know what support was out there really until I found IW. And this is a group who does such a great job in never pandering. Okay. Never giving up or compromising on anything here, but they have the ability to appeal to your everyday mom, those suburban moms like you're referring to, who maybe we don't agree on every other topic. That's the beauty of America, is we don't have to, but they know this is wrong. So IW does a fantastic job on that. And I think what they do so effectively is they stand for something. We're not standing against anything. We're not standing against people who identify as trans. It's a common misconception with the Women's Bill of Rights. People think it prohibits trans people from having any rights, but it's like, no, it doesn't even mention the word transgender in it. If someone wanted to implement some sort of trans Bill of Rights, the Women's Bill of Rights isn't stopping you from doing that. So I think they do a very good job of that. And look, it's merely being pro transparency. I think that's what it is. And I pro fairness, pro privacy, pro equal opportunity. We're standing for something. We're standing for women. And it's never been on the wrong side of history to stand for women.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thanks for coming up and joining us today. We are going to switch over now to Bridget. And this time I'm not going to start talking. I'm just going to be patient because Bridget's coming. This is awkward.
No, it is. It's hard with delays and stuff.
Yay! Here's Bridget. Hey, Bridget.
So hi there. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Riley, I met you in Scranton at the bus tour launch, if you will. And I am Megan's cousin. So not that long ago, launched in Philadelphia. So happy to be a part of this. This is so meaningful. Similarly to Meg's and to you and some others that have been in the chat room or have Jennifer prior to me have said, I played collegiate sports. I played lacrosse. My husband played lacrosse in college. My two boys are currently playing lacrosse in college. And my daughter, like your youngest sibling, is probably the best athlete of all. Proudly.
the youngest ones.
She's a superstar, and I have her here with me. It's really important that she's involved in this process with me, because while we can fight for these girls as women, ultimately it's going to come down to them standing up for themselves and having a voice. And my question to you, because you have a younger sibling, and you're than I am at this point, and that's not going to change. How would you recommend to speak to young girls like mine and empower them to use thoughtful words, to have a position that can be powerful, effective, respectful, and obviously not put them in a place of to be a target or judged, because I do want to give young girls voices. And I know, Mallory's been sitting here listening to your story, and she knows the story. She knows what I'm getting behind. We're very close, family. Meg's girls are very close to my children, but it's one thing to hear it from me as a mom and then hear it from someone else who she can look up to and idolize. And she's been sitting here saying to me that she just can't even believe this. And she also said you were really cool, by the way.
Oh my gosh. Well, Mallory, I want to hang out with you. So maybe I'll just have to come back to Pennsylvania. And it makes me very happy to see you. It really does. Like I said to Megan about her kids watching the video, it's like, this is what we're fighting for. A lot of us, actually everyone else on this call, I can probably speak for when I say we are done playing sports. It is not about us. It is certainly about you. And your teammates and your friends. And so I love that you're here and I love that you listened. I think how to address this with the youth and how the youth can then go on to address this. First, I think it's important they learn by example, right? It's sad that we live in a time where there really aren't, I think for women especially, there really aren't a lot of influential, good role models for young girls, right? You look at Hollywood or what have you. I mean, there's just not a ton. So it's important that parents be that for their kids. I think it's important that parents teach their kids how to think independently. That is certainly a lost art, is thinking for yourself. Parents teach children to call out an injustice when you see it. That is something that my parents, I think, did very well with me. They told me ever since I was little, if you see something that doesn't feel right, that goes against your gut instinct, say something. Whether it's something impacting you or something impacting others around you, be that leader. I'm very fortunate to have parents who always taught me that. I think it's important for parents to teach their kids to admit when they're wrong. Not something that I'm overly fantastic at. Again, I think it goes back to the competitive nature, especially not to my husband. I'm never admitting I'm wrong to him. And he would probably tell you I'm never wrong. But I think it's important. Again, I think it largely in part why we are a nation in decline is because we have people who are unwilling to think for themselves and unwilling to admit when they're wrong. So I think that's something that all can be taught by parents. But more specifically, and again, how we talk about this, I think this is a topic that not only can be, but should be approached with grace and truth, right? We cannot compromise on truth. And it was actually in church where I heard this. It was a sermon maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks ago where my pastor was talking about 1 John, and it was the adulterous woman who had committed adultery, which was punishable by death at that time. And so all of the Romans line up to stone her, and Jesus steps up and he says, those who have not sinned, cast the first stone, to which no one could cast a stone. We're all sinners. And that to me was the perfect display of grace that I think that we should all live with or live by. It's leading with grace, but then in that biblical account, Jesus landed with the truth by saying, now go and sin no more. And that really resonated with me at the time when hearing that, because I don't think I always do a good job of having grace on this topic, because to me, as someone who I would like to say has common sense, it feels so entry level. It feels like, how are we even discussing this? This is so simple. I just want to be witty or have a smart mouth about it sometimes. But I think it's important in understanding that you win people over. You yourself are more approachable when you can kind of lead with grace, but then land with the truth, like, again, our Lord and Savior does so well. So, again, that's kind of just what resonated with me, and something I try and implement in my life. And people find it really hard to rebut when you do that.
It is hard. It is so hard to be.
I know.
No, but that is such a great attitude to have. And I think that's why you're such a great role model for young women today.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Bridget. And
Thank you.
I see, is that your daughter off to the corner? Oh,
Yeah.
she left.
Mallory. It was Mallory.
That was Mallory. Okay.
Wow,
I was
wow.
going to say bye to Mallory. We have one more. Wendy is coming up. She's got a quick question. Let's give it a few seconds. And this will be our last question. Don't forget, we're giving away 2 books. I'm going to use this time. So stick around. The announcement will be in just a few minutes. We're coming up on the end here, but I think, let's see.
Yeah, isn't this the swimsuit, Rye?
What it looks like a swimsuit. I'm wearing a tank top there.
My girls were very interested in is this race swimsuit?
Hey, Wendy.
I probably wouldn't fit in that anymore.
Stop.
Can you guys
Hi,
hear
Lindsay.
me?
Yes,
Hi.
we can. What's your question?
Okay. So I'm also in Moms for Liberty, and I have heard that the injunction that they won protects the daughters of members, but then I've heard also if there's a member mother, that it protects all the kids in that school. Can you guys clarify which it is?
Yes. So similarly to how IWF was signed on to a lawsuit with the state of, again, Georgia, Florida, and South Carolina, I believe Moms for Liberty was signed on to a lawsuit with a few other states where a preliminary injunction was issued. And so what this means specifically for Moms for Liberty, and how I interpreted it and how I have read it thus far. Sorry, my dogs have been like playing around this whole time, so sorry if you hear them. Is that any school, someone might need to double check me on that, but I think it's any school where there are students who are the children of a Moms for Liberty member. That means their school would be protected. I believe, which is a fantastic initiative. And it's a wonderful way to get more moms involved, not just with this, but again, with a lot of the cultural chaos that we're kind of seeing and joining Moms for Liberty, or any of these groups, again, who are pretty steadfast in defending parental rights and defending the safeguarding of children and women's rights. So that's how I interpreted it. I'm not sure if it's only the individual student, but my understanding was the whole school would be protected.
Yeah, it'd be great to get an answer. I mean, we've been encouraging people to sign up for that reason, but it's hard to get to everybody that would want to in the short period of time we had. I heard it got extended. It was supposed to be like the 15th of July that you had to register by with one of those organizations, but I heard it was extended. So if there's a way to get any updates on that would be awesome, because I'm only hearing from what I get from Moms for Liberty. I was hoping maybe you guys would.
I don't know if potentially Victoria or anyone else who's around on the call might have a better answer, but I know May Mailman, who's the director of the Law Center, she would know more specifically. I can try and look it up really quick and see if there's anything that I can find. But I saw your other question
today, and it was exactly what you were saying, Riley, is that those schools that are listed, but then it said something about some of the other injunctions coming through and things that might change. So I think it's an ever-changing situation.
So this is what I just found very briefly. It says a federal judge, this is just posted on Friday, a federal judge denied a request from Moms for Liberty, this goes on to say a far-right extremist group, to block federal protections for LGBTQ students in more than 800 counties across the country. So this is saying that the judge, who was a Trump appointee in Kansas, issued a broad injunction earlier this month. It applies to schools attended by children of members of the groups that sued over the rule, which is Moms for Liberty, Young America's Foundation, and Female Athletes United. Now, in his ruling Friday, the judge said that he did not have the jurisdiction. Sorry, I'm trying to read.
Wendy, and honestly, we're coming up on time here. I think, Wendy, I don't personally know anything about this, and I want to sort of close up here and not keep Riley too much longer, but certainly I'm sure that's something we can follow up with you on.
That'd be great. Yeah, and Riley, you looked amazing at the convention.
Oh, thank you.
I saw you spoke.
Thanks, Wendy.
Great.
I see your question here about, I guess, my favorite part of the convention, and to just very briefly, which I think it's a good point to end on. At the convention, which of course it was my first convention, but in my 2 years since being like hyper plugged into the political sphere, last week was the most patriotic I felt. It is the most energy I have felt, and it is the most unified. And I say felt because you could feel it. It's the most unified I felt as a political party, which was special. It was pretty cool. I was very excited to see Trump issue. He released his platform, which issue number 17, which these
That's
are the
right.
that will take precedent and priority is no men and women's sports, which is fantastic. So I love that JD Vance is his VP. This is someone who's young, appeals to the working middle class. He, I think, is the epitome of the American dream. So I just feel very hopeful at the moment, despite having a president who's.
I too am very excited about JD Vance, but I'm not totally excited that we skipped over Gen X. Okay, I mean, it was our time, but that's fine. I will tell you, Riley, and I think I speak to Megan too, that you make us feel unified and patriotic and ready to go and ready to fight, and that you always have our backs on this issue, and we certainly have yours and support you. I can't thank you enough for everything that you've done. Megan, I'm going to give you the last word here, and because I know that this is such an emotional and important issue for you as well.
It's such an emotional issue with two little girls, and the fact that they might not have the same opportunities that Riley and I had, and that's really upsetting. Or for them to not want to do sports because they're afraid to get hurt, or they feel like it's unfair right off the bat. But like she just said, Riley, you make us all feel so great and excited and patriotic. And I know a lot of readers want to know, how can we help you? Like, what can we do to help you, support this mission, and hear it from your mouth on how we can help?
Well, definitely get plugged in with IW. If you aren't already, I imagine people on this call already are, but tell your friends about it. Bring them to the chapter meetings, get them plugged in. It's really crucial work that we're doing. Secondly, is keep talking about it. Courage is contagious. That is what I've experienced over these past 2 years or so. And having the conversation, you will find more people agree with you than you would imagine. So talk about it. Don't shy away, and stand firm. You can follow me on X, which is Riley_Gaines_, or Instagram, which is Riley G. Barker. Again, you can tell others about the book. Hopefully it's a good resource in understanding how we got here, where we're going, and what we can do about it as everyday people.
It is in the chat, way to get your book, Riley. We put it in the chat, the link in there. Mm-hmm. I was going to say goodbye to you, Riley, but I want you to hang on one more second, because we have the winners of your signed copies, and you're going to love this one. Number one, Stacy Hernandez. Number 2, Mallory.
Yay!
So,
Yay!
Mallory, and we will get in touch with Mallory's mom. I knew that would make you particularly happy, Riley. And to those 2 winners, our staff will get a hold of you via email. And Bridget, obviously, we will get in touch with you for Mallory. So, Riley, we just love you. Everybody listening, everybody tuning in loves you. You are just our favorite. And thank you so much for spending the evening with us tonight.
You guys are the best. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So don't hang up, everyone. I've got a few other things to say. First, a big thank you to Megan. You are great. It was nice to have an athlete on here with me. So thank you.
Always nice to be with you, Julie. I love our time together.
It was fun. It was fun. And I want to just remind everybody, we've got more events coming up. July 30th, great conversation. Jenny Gentles, IWF's Jenny Gentles, she runs the Education Freedom Center there. She is going to host an education space exposing the truth about the teachers union. They've had a meeting this week. Randy is on her soapbox, so you don't want to miss that, July 30th. And on August 13th, we'll host a live conversation with Seth Dillon. I'll be talking to him along with Inez Stetman, another IWF staffer over there. He is, of course, the Babylon Bee, so expect to have a lot of fun, a lot of laughs. For more information about all of these events and more upcoming events, follow us on our social media channels, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You know how to find us. We hope you enjoyed this conversation. I certainly did. Megan, again, great hanging out with you. We'll see you next time. Bye, ladies.